Go ahead and start our sessions for today. Our first session up is Heather MacSlarrow from the Society of Wilderness Stewardship, our partner organization who helps us put on these workshops, and Vicky Hoover from the Sierra Club, who are going to talk to us about the planning for the 60th anniversary of the Wilderness Act, coming up in 3 short years. So Heather.
Thanks, Randy. I'm just going to add, we also have Lisa Ronald has agreed to help us present and shore us up and do what she does best. So Lisa's going to present with us also. Mainly what we wanted to do today was have a discussion. So if you're comfortable, we're going to do a little bit of an intro, but we're going to ask you to come on camera. And after about 20 minutes, we're going to move you into breakout rooms to discuss. So, you know, if you need to like brush your teeth or change your out of your pajamas or something, like now would be the time if you're willing to do that. So basically what we wanted to do was talk about the 60th anniversary of the Wilderness Act, which is coming up in 3 years, which is not very far away to plan a large event. And we really wanted to brainstorm what that should look like. As most of you know, if you were able to participate in the 50th anniversary, we were able to use the year of the 50th anniversary to shine this light on wilderness kind of across the country in a number of grassroots events happening at local communities leading up to the 50th anniversary workshop event in Albuquerque. So we wanted to get your ideas today about what it should look like, what we should be preparing for, and what do we want to get out of it. So first we're going to hear from Vicky about what the 50th looked like and how they utilize that. And then we'll hear from Lisa about how anniversaries in general can be utilized, kind of raise the awareness of an entity. So Vicky, take it away.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Heather. And thanks to all who are here. And the discussion we've already had this morning about new things to do kind of leads into our celebration of the 60th discussion, because we will have new ways to celebrate. We will have a new focus, things like a new focus on equity and inclusion of more communities, broadening the wilderness community. And we've got 30 by 30 now to help put wilderness in a new context, or to put 30 by 30 into a new wilderness context, if you will. Anyhow, I was heavily involved in planning for the 50th anniversary of the wilderness, as was Lisa Ronald here, without whom probably nothing would have happened. We spent almost 4 full years with an organizing committee and making the plans. So that took a lot of time. And I think that our organizing effort for those 4 years was as strong as it was, in part, maybe large part, because we had an almost equal participation, I would say, between agency folks and NGO community people like myself. And that made for a really strong effort. That was true both for planning our national conference and for planning local events around the country. Heather is focused a lot on the big conference we're going to have, an expanded version of this kind of workshop in 2024. And I want to talk a little more about some of the opportunities for local events. That was another strength of our organizing effort for the 50th, that we didn't focus only on one big gathering, which, wonderful though it was, really attracts just the people who are there and educates them and re-inspires them. But local events around the country can speak about wilderness and educate people in a much, much larger public. The reason that we need to start work on this right now, we probably should have started a while back, is that some events take a really long time to plan. Between having the idea and making it happen is a long, complex, in some cases, interval. Examples of some things that take a long time to plan that can be done around the country. And I'm hoping that in this discussion in our breakout sessions, you folks will think of a lot more events, possibilities that we didn't even think of for the 50th. But anyway, some of the things we tried to do. One thing that did not succeed was getting an article in the National Geographic. We almost got there. I was in discussion with a writer who was enthusiastic, but kind of at the last minute, his superiors vetoed the project because they wanted to focus more on the then soon upcoming 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. Anyhow, that's still something we should try for the 60th. I think wilderness deserves to be in the National Geographic, highlighted and featured. Another thing that was not successful, and this could be the most difficult of all, getting a commemorative postage stamp from the post office. I don't know if anybody here has any experience in working with the post office, but if you do, I would love to hear from you as to how to do it, because I don't know. But I think wilderness definitely deserves a commemorative postage stamp. Some other things that take quite a long time to organize. Museum exhibits. Most cities have some kind of museum, and they often are willing, if we work with them enough in advance, to do an exhibit featuring wilderness in 2024. Similarly, library displays that might not take quite as long advanced planning, but public libraries, as you know, that gets an enormous public visiting there, and it's a wonderful way to promote our message about why wilderness matters. Other events that might not take quite as long are getting your local city council, county boards of supervisors, even your state legislature to issue a proclamation in honor of wilderness. We had quite a few of those actually in 2014. Why should the 60th anniversary be any less important than the 50th, right? Getting speakers for lecture series, getting outings. Some organizations like my organization, Sierra Club, we do outings, and working with our chapters around the country to get a lot of local themed outings that are themed on wilderness in 2024. That can take some advanced planning too, to get our outings leaders to gear up for it and plan it. In some cases, for the 50th, we worked with the agency, the Forest Service we had some joint Forest Service and Sierra Club outings, for example, to some wilderness areas. And even, you know, an outing in a local city that's not exactly in wilderness, but has a wilderness theme, say even in a local community park, that can help a lot in getting people together and educating them. So, you know, that's almost enough ideas for me to mention. As Heather said, the goal is to get some thoughts from you about helping us prepare our list of 60 ways to celebrate the 60th anniversary. So before we break up into those little breakout groups to brainstorm on ideas, let's hear a bit from Lisa.
Hi, Vicky, and thank you, Vicky and Heather for looping me in here. So just to provide some context, so I was one of the key planners for the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Act back in 2014, and worked very closely with Vicky. And I think, Vicky, till the day we die, we're going to have a very close friendship just because of that experience. So I'm very humbled and grateful to have worked and developed some really rich relationships, you know, through that experience. I've also chaired and led the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act 50th in 2018. And so I think when I look back, I just wanted to share some of my sort of personal just observations, you know, as I've sort of been active in several of these anniversaries and seen other ones go by. So I think if we look at a timeline, we had the Wilderness Act anniversary, which really was the first, I think, 50th anniversary of any of the major ones. And so it did set an incredible precedent. And I think a lot of other anniversary efforts learned a lot from what we did. And there was no formula for what we did. So, it was a really great planning effort. After that, 2016 was the, National Park Service Centennial. 2018 was the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. There are a couple more smaller ones, I think, that have come within there. But then next year in 2022, we have the Clean Water Act 50th. And so that's going to be another large, sort of larger anniversary specifically for people who work in the scope of clean water. So in looking back at all of that time, I think one of my sort of biggest regrets with the Wilderness Act 50th is that at the time, we gave absolutely no thought in sort of the planning of the 50th as to what happens next. How do we carry this momentum forward? How do we use this momentum for change beyond this year? And I think part of that was just, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the capacity. There were a variety of reasons why that didn't happen, but I have seen that element come in other anniversaries, which is to say that maybe that's something we want to give more thought to now, particularly that we're not on sort of like a golden anniversary, that this might be something to think about. So, ways that I've seen that transpire in a couple of these other anniversaries, so the Wild and Scenic Rivers community, for example, they're not quite as lucky as we are as a wilderness community. We have had NWSA and SWS as sort of the leaders and the cultivators of community for a very long time. And the Wild and Scenic Rivers community has not had that. There have been a lot of great organizations doing things very separately. And so one of the, and that has been a concept that's been discussed, well before the anniversary. So I think that was something that going into the anniversary, people wanted to see that happen. And so through the anniversary, that was a mechanism to develop this broader sense of community and this broader cooperativeness that didn't exist prior. And so there were discussions starting at the beginning of the anniversary, like, hey, how are we going to continue this? What does this look like after this is over? We need to be thinking a year, 2 years, 3 years out, as opposed to just what happens this coming year during the anniversary. And so I am happy to say that that collaboration was thought about prior. The anniversary was used to sort of as a mechanism to create that. And then it's been sustained since then. So that was sort of like a deliberate thing that happened. And I'm not saying that, we need that exact thing as a wilderness community, but more so that that's an idea of sort of deliberate thinking of what happens before, how do we use this, and then what happens afterwards. And then, and obviously customizing that to the needs of the community. So I think, you could say that there were a lot of things that came out of the centennial that, were well beyond the major, every kid in a park type of awareness effort. Like the National Park Foundation became a force and had, incredible fundraising power because of that. And that has continued. So that's a change that has sort of sustained well beyond the anniversary. And I think as I look at what's happening with the clean water folks, they're actually taking a very different approach to anniversaries and not really focusing at all yet on, sort of event level types of engagement, but they're focusing more on collecting together and really coming together as a water protection community around a set of priorities that are going to then determine what they do. So that, they are preparing to ask for things like better enforcement of the Clean Water Act and using the anniversary as a vehicle to try and achieve that. So that, does bring us more into the realm of thinking about, okay, well, what kind of advocacy or stewardship advancements might we want to leverage and use the anniversary to do that. But I guess I'm sort of here to bring forth this as a question, to say that there's one aspect of anniversaries and that to focus on the awareness pieces and to really get that community engagement that Vicky was talking about. And that's a super important part of celebrating an anniversary, but that there may also be other pieces that we now want to think about. There may be other things that we want to come together around deliberately and use the anniversary to do that. And I think the last thing that I would suggest, is if that's something that, as a community we want to do, to think about now, 2 years out-ish, is there research that we want to have available to us for decision making rationale 3 years from now? There have been multiple times when, just as a citizen, I have sat in a public meeting and thought to myself, wow, it would have been really great if the University of Montana had done this research 3 years ago, and then we would have had all this research to bring to this meeting that would have been really, really interesting and relevant right about now. With the sort of changing in leadership at the Leopold Institute and, the efforts that we heard about, I think yesterday or, 2 days ago, about the trajectory of their research efforts, that the research might be another piece to give some thought to, as to, are there specific things that we want knowledge on in time for the anniversary that might dovetail into some priorities that that we want to see. So anyway, I'll leave it with that, leave us with the possible question of, are there priorities that we might want to center around asking, for the next anniversary. And definitely just to acknowledge, Christina, you put a comment in the chat, about the 2020 vision. And, yes, I think the 2020 vision came out. I don't know. I would suggest that I'm like, okay, what happened then? Has that been accomplished? I think there was an implementation plan that was shelved, and so there might be some wisdom there to bring forward, but I guess I would question whether that particular effort really gave us something beyond the 50th, or if that's something that we want to maybe pick up on and push forward. So anyway, just a question to leave us with about, what do we do after the anniversary, and how do we use this as an opportunity to advance advocacy and stewardship in a meaningful and deliberate way.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. Those pointers about looking ahead in more innovative ways. Thank you, Lisa. That's great. Before we break up into the smaller groups, I would like to say two things. First of all, I forgot to mention another important category of events that can happen around the country that we focused on in the 50th and could be even more important in the 60th. Connecting art and wilderness. Artists, both visual artists doing paintings. We had a bunch of painting exhibits for the 50th, in honor of the 50th. There were wonderful examples of art. We also tried in some ways to get commissioned musical compositions from composers or performance groups around the country. That's something also that can take quite a bit of planning. So the broader connection between art and wilderness should be something we really consider, as far as in connection with what Lisa was saying about a broader look at a community and using wilderness as a theme to bring more people together. The only other thing I wanted to say, and I've probably already forgotten what it is. Oh yeah, there's another kind of that's fun event that anybody can work on in your own community. Contests and quizzes. We developed a national wilderness quiz, which is still relevant, and one could do local ones about wilderness areas in your state. You can do contests for people. Name 3 wilderness areas in our state, or more, depending on your state, of course. And there are only 6 states that don't have any wilderness, and perhaps they can think about areas that might make potential wilderness. Anyway, there's no end of ways. So let me stop right there.
Thanks so much, Vicky and Lisa. So we really want to hear from you, all of the ideas that you heard from Vicky and Lisa, what your ideas are. How do we honor the 60th anniversary. What goals do we want to set for Wilderness? What do we want to use it to achieve? So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms right now. You'll get a little message on your screen that says, do you want to join this breakout room? You click yes. The whole screen will disappear. That's okay. It comes back in your breakout room. And then I'm going to call you back in 20 minutes. So we'll see you in 20. And actually, also, if you could have a note taker and or reporter, could be the same person or different people. So you can report out to the group and then we can have a written record at the end of the session of what your ideas were. All right. Thanks, guys. See you in a few.